Evil shall with evil be expelled. And from an American remake that David Fincher surprisingly also did very well.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll anybody to drive. Get in the car. Fucking shit! Fuck me in the ass! Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt!
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with episode 5 of David Fincher Month, and this episode is going to be for what is easily my third favorite film from David Fincher, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Yeah. So what is the plot of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? Well, Michael Blomkvist, played by Daniel Craig, is a disgraced journalist who is asked by a wealthy industrialist to write a biography on his family. But what he really wants Blomkvist to do is find out what happened to his niece, who went missing 40 years ago. At first, Blomkvist isn't interested, but the man offers to help him clear his name. Blomkvist begins by talking to the man's relatives who were with the girl when she went missing, but some of them are not forthcoming. Blomkvist eventually believes that her disappearance might have something to do with serial killings that took place 20 years before she disappeared. So he asks for a research assistant, and so the industrialist man suggests Lisbeth Sander, a talented hacker who does background checks for them, and we even did one for Blomkvist. When he sees her report, he's impressed and asks her to work with him, and she does. She's antisocial, but extremely efficient. So how was this movie made? Well, Sony Pictures began development on the film in 2009, around the time the Swedish version of the film had been released. It took the company a few months to obtain the film adaptation rights to the novel, and recruit Zellilian and Fincher. The casting process for the lead roles was intense, because Daniel Craig had faced scheduling conflicts, and a number of actresses were sought for the role of Lisbeth Salander. There's a lot to name, so I'm unable to really list them, but I know the names of who they wanted to have play Lisbeth. The script took over 6 months to write, and included 3 months of analyzing the novel. But after The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was officially shot and marketed, it would go on to premiere at the Odeon Square in London on December 12, 2011, and was released in the United States on December 21st, 2011. At the box office, the movie did okay-ish. It only made about $232 million worldwide on a $9 million budget, but received critical acclaim, because they praised Mara's performance and Craig's performance and Fincher's direction, the score, the film's tone, the visuals, and it got chosen by the National Board of Review as one of the top 10 films in 2011 and was a candidate for numerous awards, especially like the Academy Award for Best Film Editing, and of course Rooney Mara got an Oscar nomination for Best Actress as well. There were going to be 2 sequels, but based off the novel's sequels. But because of the worldwide box office, they didn't happen. What did we get instead? We got a soft reboot called The Girl in the Spider's Web by director of Alien Romulus Fed Alvarez, which really fucking sucks. Man, but a part of me can't see why this film did not perform well. Many reasons. First off, the film was released in December 2011. And, well, what's so bad about that release, you may ask? Well, December 2011, guys. You remember all the films that came out during that time? Fuck loads of them. There was Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol. There was Sherlock Holmes 2. For your Christmas blockbusters. So, this got released during that time. And of course, got crushed by both of them. Other reason? The tone. The problem with the Christmas release was the tone of the movie. Christmas usually is a happy, uplifting time when people are just want to have like happy things, not like dark, disturbing, or grim stuff. In a way. Around the time, they don't really want to feel that kind of stuff during the holidays. That was also a problem. Because this film has a number of disturbing stuff. The story has a number of disturbing stuff. And I don't think they want to see, like, they don't want to see, like, stuff like rape or kidnapping, but 4 days before Christmas. I don't think they want to see a story about that stuff. So that turned off quite a few people. And also, well, 3, the story's not as popular as something like Lord of the Rings or The Godfather. It's not as popular as that stuff. So yeah. There's quite a number of reasons why it didn't do well. And plus, it's 158 minutes long. That's also a bit of a factor. I feel like this should have came out in February 2012. Then it would have probably did a lot better. Just what I think. And then we would have got those sequels. But as for my reaction to the film, this has always been my third favorite film from David Fincher, no doubt. It's one of those rare times where an American adaptation of a foreign story works very well. I have not seen the Swedish version of this movie, I have not read the novel, but I am familiar with the novel. This film, no, I obviously wasn't not allowed to see this when it first came out because I was too young. When this came out in 2011, I was obviously not allowed to watch it because I was not old enough. None of my family let me near this film. Quite a few family members of mine had watched the film, and they pretty much told me I was not watching this at all. And after I watched this, then I eventually watched this in 2017, and yeah, I could definitely understand why they did not want me watching this at that age. Because of how really dark this film is. But when I did watch, I watched it during my wisdom teeth recovery, and before I saw this film, Deathly Hallows Part 2 was my favorite film of 2011. Then, when I saw this film, this became that. If I was old enough to see this movie back then, I probably would have been number 1 for my favorite films from 2011. If I was old enough when it first came out. But it is my third favorite David Fincher movie. Is it because I still prefer 7 and Fight Club for 2 and 1. Pretty much our movie kicks off with this brief prologue, and we have this weird opening credits, and we have this epic badass cover of Immigrant from Trent Reznor and Karen O. And I gotta tell you, as soon as that starts off, you know you're in for quite the wild ride. From the beginning, movie, from Stieg Larsson's novel, it gets brought to life in America this time. It got brought to life in Sweden. Because there was 3 other films. There were Swedish versions of the movie. But this is now brought to life in the US. The mystery surrounding the film's white knuckling, and adds to the intensity mood of the story and the characters. Throughout the movie, you don't know who this killer is. Or if this person they killed is even dead. Not until the last hour of the film, and we find out the twist, it leaves quite the impact on the viewers. So, pretty much around the time, David Fincher was known for directing brutal crime thrillers, and always surprising viewers all the way through. Some of his films underperform, yes, but they always impress a lot of cinema goers. Even if they don't perform at the box office. The year before this came out, he did a non-thriller movie called The Social Network, which I had reviewed last week. It really sets up this movie, though. Every film he makes just sets up a tone of suspense, tension, and fear for the characters. The girl with the dragon tattoo is not any different from that, and it adds a signature touch to the movie. And of all the people they got to play these roles, I feel like they did perfect casting Daniel Craig for the role of Michael Blomkvist, and this movie really showed people that Daniel Craig could play characters other than James Bond. With the amount of screen time he has, Robin Wright was also good as Blomkin's business partner Erica. Christopher Plummer, may he rest in peace. he was also great in this film too. And Stellan Skarsgård, both of them gave great performances. Henrik Vanger and Martin Vanger also as well. But the number one performance that stands out among all of them, yeah, you guessed it, guys, is Rooney Mara as Lisbeth Salander. This was like after last year she starred in the Bad Nightmare Street remake. The Social Network started to release a few months after that, started to put her on a decently better path. This movie, this was the role that made her a big star or an underrated one. And you can definitely see why she would. Anyone who's seen the movie can definitely see why she was nominated for an Oscar for this performance. Like, she went through a lot of hell for this role. Like, either she had to go, like, Fincher had told her to go get drunk at a bar quite a few times and had to come looking all hungover to get the right mind for Elizabeth Salander. There was quite a few method acting during the scene where her corrupt money holder pretty much kind of rapes her. Right there. So all the bruises on her body after that are real. Yeah, she went through a lot of hell to make this role very believable. Like, Rooney Mara really embodied Elizabeth Salander and bringing immense intimidation, danger, and fury every time she comes on screen. Her eyes are wide and emotionless, as if you can kind of see right through her. With everything that really her character has gone through, you understand why Elizabeth has the right to be that way. She may be smart, but she's not interested in attraction or friendships with another human being. With how messed up her life is, who can blame her? How do we start off? Well, after we get that, we start off with some prologue, and then we get this epic immigrant cover of Immigrant, which I will admit, I think that easily might have to be my favorite cover of the song, or my favorite version of the song, even. Like, that's such a badass way to start the movie. It's easily one of the best opening titles to a movie yet. Such a perfect cover. It's just, like, this cover is even more badass. Then we get to our actual story, where we meet our journalist protagonist, Michael Blomkvist. He's recovering from the legal fallout of this liberal lawsuit brought against him by this businessman named Hans-Erik Wennerstrom. Then the wealthy Henrik Vanger offers Blomkvist evidence against Wennerstrom in exchange for an unusual task. He has to investigate the 40-year-old disappearance and pursue murder at Henrik's grandniece, 16-year-old Harriet. Right there. And like, the score in this movie from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, it's perfect, it's eerie, it's unsettling. Like, just as good as, like, they always do great scores when they work with David Fincher, whether it's a Social Network or whether it's this movie. It improves the scenes, it doesn't overpower them. And it's definitely a perfect adaptation, like, right there, like, perfect adaptation right there. Like, if you're adapting a book to a movie, this is definitely one of the few ways to do it. Like, when you're adapting like a dark, gritty novel, Fincher really knew how to do this well. And this is coming from someone who's never read the book once again. Like, the most touching scenes of the film, like when it's not like all the mysterious or dark, the most touching, lighthearted scenes of the film, they come from the characters themselves. It's because this movie really is a character-driven story, and they're more powerful than Lisbeth and Michael themselves. David Fincher makes their on-screen chemistry, makes the relationship the focus, and it really pays off. Like Fincher really recognized these two are actually the heart of the story. Their scenes are perfect together. Their scenes actually feel believable. Like, there's some light references to romance or sex scenes between them, but they're not the romance stuff's not really the main focus of the film. Like, it's not over touched up on, and yeah, like, they have a pretty good partnership on screen. They're like, and there's like not a scene where they argue with one another when they appear on screen together. Like, I know like some people want to call this a remake, but personally, I don't think it's a remake, and I kind of wish people wouldn't call it a remake. It's an adaptation of a book. Right here. Like, there's a kind of a difference. Yeah, it's there was a Swedish version before it, but the thing is, though, this was the adaptation for the American audiences. In a way. Usually a remake just applies if you're kind of just, well, doing a redo story of another movie. This was based off a book. Like, so yeah. And every year, like, then, of course, after that, Vanger receives this Prainfrest flower, the type Harriet would always give him on his birthday, and believes her killer is taunting him. So Blomkvist investigates. He goes to a college on the Vanger family estate on Hedesday Island, and he starts his investigation there. Then after we see, like, Vanger and Michael, we meet Rooney Mara's character, Lisbeth Salander, our other protagonist of the movie, who we know is an associated investigator and a hacker. She's antagonized by her state-appointed guardian, Nils Bjorman, who ends up in control of her money after her last guardian died. He pretty much has strict control of her finances, and basically, the only way she's going to get any of her money is if she pretty much has to extort sexual favors to him or be institutionalized. So yeah. Then she's pretty much forced to do these meetings because at one point this guy tries to steal her bag. She beats the shit out of him, but then her computer is busted up, and so she has to get a new computer. So that's a drag. So she goes to that meeting, gets sexually assaulted, and then after that has another meeting for pretty much rent money for food. For that meeting, the German knocks in one of the most disturbing scenes of all time. The German knocks her out, chains Salander to his bed, and well, yeah, that's where we get our rape scene. But he doesn't know his action is being recorded. And like that's the scene where she gets home and showers in pain. All the bruises on her body were very real. Those were not makeup. There was actually quite a bit of method acting for the role. So all those bruises are actually bruises. So, the next meeting after that, she tasers Bjorman for her revenge, binds him, then rapes him with pretty much a steel dildo, and then tattoos that he's a rapist pig across his chest, and she blackmails him into giving her financial independence and seizing contact with her by having this report that they're never going to have. And if he brings another girl to his apartment, she is going to track him down, and she's going to murder him. And right there, guys, this is a bit of a disturbing bit, but it's also very satisfying. Right there, it's very satisfying to see her get his revenge on his corrupt piece of shit. And he gets his comeuppance. Now, as much as I hate rape scenes in movies, and agree both revenge and actual rape in this are definitely somewhat disturbing, but the revenge is also satisfying too. Here, though, the rape kind of works. I'm fine with it. But it's kind of a key point of the story. It's not the main focus of the film either, so it's one of the few times where I can deal with it. It works for the plot. It kind of also shows the hellish life Lisbeth Salander has to go through for all the time we have to meet her before her and Michael do officially meet. They don't really meet till like the middle of the film. And it's satisfying to see her get her payback and get control of her money that is strictly hers. And also, apparently, like the Bjorman's actor actually was very horrified filming the rape scene that he actually locked himself in his hotel room and literally sobbed. Heck there, and honestly, you can definitely see why. Even it's uncomfortable for me to sit through. What really helps make the scene effective also is the music. The soundtrack to the film is brilliant. The soundtrack of this film really builds the atmosphere of the film and even improves the scenes. And Lisbeth throughout the film, who looks like a definitely straight up rough cut. She's actually the type of chick you definitely don't want to step foot near. Right there. She actually is a great character, but she also can be very scary when she's pissed off. Especially if anybody fucks with this chick, they're fucking done. And pretty much, especially in Bjorman's case, their life is officially over. So yeah, this is not a chick you ever want to get on the bad side of. And we also find out that she's a good investigator type that even watches people and gets information from them. Like, that's what really makes her actually quite an amazing character. Like, she's always this rough out her edge. You can tell she's always scheming in her head and always control. And always 2 steps ahead. Like, David Fincher leads the movie with strings of like well done shots, great dialogues, and shocker scenes that really get into the viewer's neck and the hair on the viewer's neck. And the runtime of like 158 minutes, that does seem like a pretty long time, but honestly, surprisingly to me, this movie didn't feel long at all. It didn't really feel that long to me. It just went by smooth like that. Went by pretty quick. So, Fincher really does well in pacing a 158-minute runtime. Yeah, like... And now, the rest of the violence, apart from those 2 scenes I mentioned, the rest of the violence isn't really all that uncomfortable. It's really just those 2 scenes that are really uncomfortable, really. But that's kind of the point, though. Like, the violence isn't supposed to just be, like, gore. It's not supposed to be glorified. The violence is there for a good reason. If you, like, omitted all the dark, NC-17 rated stuff, then you wouldn't really get a perfect adaptation. If this is supposed to be, like, a really dark, grisly story, you can't omit that stuff. Especially if that's in the book. They're like, this is definitely about as intense as crime thrillers get. For those, like, yeah. Nothing really falls in, and everything falls into place perfectly here. So, now we get back to Michael Blomkvist after we get a bit more time with Elizabeth Salander, knowing the hell of life she has to go through. Now we're back to Blomkvist, who's exploring the island, and he interviews Vanger's relatives, most of whom we find out were Nazis or Nazi sympathizers during the Second World War. So Blomkvist uncovers his list of names, and numbers that are pretty much Bible verse references, and so, after this scene with Elizabeth and this other chick at the club, now we get to the bit where Michael and Elizabeth meet each other for the first time the next morning. He recruits Salander as his research assistant after he finds out that she did a background check on him. And so, Salander agrees. And so, she discovers the connection between the list and the young women that were brutally murdered from 1947 to 1967 that indicate the serial killer, and many of the victims all had Jewish names, and it made her theorize that the murders could be motivated by anti-Semitism. So, and then the next morning, after Blomkvist sees her typing and she tells him to have a coffee, Blomkvist then finds the corpse of his cat on the doorstep, though. And then another night, a bullet hits Michael in the head. And then pretty much we get this nice little moment where Salander tends to his wounds and is like, I hope that's sterilized. And like, can we just use tape to cover it up? No. And yeah, pretty much puts a bit of vodka on that wound, and then she pretty much lets Michael drink the rest of the vodka. Just lets Michael drink the rest of the vodka. She's tending to the wounds. Which, okay, yeah, that's definitely one nice little kind of funny bit where, right there, pretty much a funny shot. Just tends to the wound with vodka, and then just lets him drink the rest of it as she's tending to the rest of it and stitching it up. And so after that, then the two have sex. And there's a slight bit of romantic stuff between them in that bit, but they're not like over cheesy romantic, and it's just rarely occasionally when that stuff happens. Then the pair learn that Harriet's late father got freed, and later Martin, her brother, omitted the murders. And while looking for more proof, Blomkvist gets pretty much caught by Martin, gassed unconscious, and restrained in a prepared basement, and A.K. Stellan Skarsgård's character. And eventually, around during this time, Salander finds out that Bajurman has been trying to visit tattoo removal websites and did not put in any effort into that report that she had made him do. So she visits him there, just straight up threatens him, tells him to stop visiting those websites now, or she's gonna tattoo what she did earlier again, except she's gonna tattoo it on his head, so that it will easily be seen. Right there, and even does not even let him talk, and then just straight up exits the elevator like this intimidating force. So then, after Blomkvist is captured by Martin, Martin then later breaks about he's been killing and raping people for decades, like his father did, and admits to not knowing though what happened to Harriet. And just as Martin is about to kill Blomkvist, Solander arrives, rescues Blomkvist, and wounds Martin, and he has to flee. So, Solander pursues Martin on a motorcycle, and Martin runs his car off the road, and hits a propane tank, and that blows up the car and that kills him. She then nurses Blomkvist back to health, and Solander reveals that she wasn't actually, in fact, was institutionalized after she attempted to burn her father alive as a child. So she actually was institutionalized the whole time. Kind of actually was institutionalized to begin with. Like pretty much throughout the film, Daniel Craig is excellent as this journalist, Michael Blomkvist, and plays the understated leading man role to perfection here. The interactions between Lisbeth and Michael are an effort for both of them. There's some nice little moments of dry humor that does improve the relationship between the characters. And what also works so brilliantly in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the raw power of the images and the sequences combined with the great acting and the great score. Fincher is a director that's known for dark and gritty stuff. He holds nothing back in it. He holds nothing back with this film. He does exactly like how fans of the book would have definitely wanted it to be portrayed as. He did it very well. When you're trying to adopt if you're adopting a dark story, this is kind of a dark R-rated story. This is how it should look like. And as you progress through this movie with these characters that you become hopelessly attached to, there's many great scenarios that say a lot about the emotion, relationship, and victims of violence throughout the film. So, after Martin is killed and Michael Blomkvist is nursed back to health, and we find out Lisbeth was institutionalized, they pretty much come to the realization that Harriet is not dead. She's alive and she's in hiding. And they travel to London and they find her. And Harriet reveals that Godfrey sexually abused her when she was 14 for a year before she could defend herself, and then killed Godfrey in the process by drowning him. And after the murder got witnessed by Martin, Martin continued to abuse Harriet after Godfrey's death, but her cousin smuggled her off the island to save her and let Harriet assume her identity in London. But Anita and her husband got killed in an accident. But now that her brother is dead, Harriet can now go back to Sweden, and her and Henrik happily reunite with one another, tearfully. Right there. So, these two, Harriet can finally see Henrik again and can finally go home. Now that her attempted killer is dead. Now when it comes to the character of Martin, I haven't mentioned much about Stellan Skarsgård's performance, but now I'll mention it here. Stellan Skarsgård also gives a wonderful performance, an intimidating performance as the incompetent grandson that's ruining the company as well. And the twist of Skarsgård's character is very unexpected, and it's definitely intimidating once he's revealed as the big bad that was causing this whole case from the very start. Right there, you find out he was pretty much the one that was abusing Harriet. This. Once you see his villain side, he actually becomes quite intimidating. The movie has one main storyline with several side stories branching off, and it's nice when movies do something like that the way this movie does it, because you just grow attached to our two lead characters. You have the story of Lisbeth's rough childhood, right there, the story of Blomkvist's problems with liberating Winterstorm, the story behind the characters is what gives the movie its depth. We're given much more than just a great storyline. We're watching these characters develop as the story develops. It makes the audience feel like they're experiencing the events through the character's perspective. Fincher's direction really captured the film's tone, and also with the photography of Jeff Cronenweth, and both really did well. Cronenweth captures this atmosphere of death, making the viewer feel uncomfortable, right there, and he really captured key moments with the rape scenes that introduces this feeling of disgust and fear in the viewers. It also captures the feeling of power and the control the antagonist is kind of then feeling once he gets his comeuppance, or actually when he's feeling that at the time when he doesn't think he's being recorded, and also really satisfied to see the fear that's in his eyes when Elizabeth is getting his revenge on him. Now, we get on to the finale of the movie, where after Harriet has now come home, Henrik gives Blomkvist the promised information against Winterstrom. But sadly, it's outdated, and any statute's limitations have run out. But Solander has revealed that she has hacked Wennerstrom's accounts and discovered that he was actually laundering money from criminal syndicates. So, she gives Blomkvist evidence of Wennerstrom's crimes, and Blomkvist publishes it in a scathing editorial. Wennerstrom is ruined, and it brings Blomkvist to national prominence. He finally is free of this whole plagiarism case. Solander, in disguise, borrows some money from Blomkvist, travels to Switzerland, and removes 2 billion euros from Wennerstrom's secret accounts, and then Wennerstrom is murdered in an apparently gangland shooting. Yeah, and after that, and so we get like one last little conversation with them, and they pretty much bid farewell to each other, and that they'll see each other around. And honestly, you know what? I feel like if the movie ended there, I feel like that would have been a good spot to end the movie. Not gonna lie. They both say they'll see each other again soon, and they go off in separate directions, and you could have just rolled the credits there, and I would have been perfectly satisfied with that. That would have been a nice little way to wrap up the story, especially if you're not gonna if the sequels weren't gonna end up happening. Then that would have been a nice way to wrap it up the story. Then you could just pretend this was just a one and done. This version of the story was a one and done. As much as I would have wanted the sequels to happen, I kind of wish that was... Now I do kind of wish that last bit was the end of the movie. But it's not over yet, because we get one last bit where she's meeting with them again, saying that she's found a friend. And then she goes to give Blomkvist this Christmas present, which is this new leather coat. But sadly, Solander sees him and his lover, Erica, being affectionate, so... You can see she's heartbroken by this, so she throws the gift in the dumpster, and the last shot you see is her riding away on her bike. Then it's over. But that is how The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo ends. Lisbeth now realizes she's fallen in love with Michael, and is about to tell him, and buy him this beautiful leather jacket as a present, but it turns out she sees him with Erica, so the present was bought for nothing. So that's kind of a sad side of the ending. On the other hand, on the good side of the ending, a serial murderer has been brought to justice. And a long-suffering uncle has been reunited with his niece. He thought was dead this whole time. He could finally see his niece again before he passes on. And Wennerstrom is not going to be a threat to anybody else now, because Lisbeth has exposed his crimes, and then he has given the information of his crimes to Michael, and Michael's exposed all his crimes as payback for trying to ruin his career, and he's now murdered and ruined for life. Lisbeth is now a billionaire, and now very rich. Yeah. We were supposed to get Play with Fire and Kick the Hornet's Nest for this version, but Sony didn't like the box office results, so they said no and scrapped both of them for Fede Alvarez to do his cruddy reboot that, unlike this movie, which even then is still talked about by Fincher fans, is even being one of the few being re-released in events, in Cineplex events, is still talked about by quite a few Fincher fans, including myself. Girl in the Spider's Web from Fede Alvarez. That movie bombed at the box office too, except nobody liked it, and nobody's ever talked about it since. Damn. Yeah, should have just... So sorry, Sony, should have just made those sequels. That should... Or technically it's Sony's own fault for putting this on Christmas and not on a different month. Because nobody's going to want to watch a story like this on Christmas. Nobody's going to want to do that. But that still sucks though, because I would have loved to have those two movies. Like this could have been like... The trilogies like The Godfather, The Lord of the Rings, the original Star Wars trilogy. This could have been that for David Fincher. David Fincher could have had that, could have actually had his very first trilogy with this. He could have had something like that in his career with these adaptations. But Sony fucked up the release, so that's not going to happen. Same. Is there bad qualities? Well, there's no bad qualities for me, but I'm sure there probably would be for some people that are familiar with the novel, have read the novel, and are familiar with the Swedish versions. For those who aren't, some would likely say, yeah, the tone might not be for everybody because this is definitely a very dark and very disturbing movie and a disturbing story. And the film, yeah, it is 158 minutes long, but for me personally, I think I've seen a lot of 3-hour stuff at this rate, so this movie kind of just went by like a finger snap, like a breeze. Pretty quick. This movie actually honestly didn't feel that long to me. This surprisingly felt like 130 or 120 minutes. But maybe I've just seen a lot of 3-hour stuff for me, so... And of course, I do wish that last conversation Michael and Elizabeth had is where the movie really did end. Because then I could better accept this as just a one-chapter story. Then I would have if that was the ending. Then I would have been fine if the sequels were unable to get made. That kind of would have been a better spot to end the movie. Other than that, I don't see any problems with the movie. Because this is easily one of Fincher's most underrated movies, and to me his third best. So it's so worth buying. Even if you haven't read the novel, it's still worth a watch if you're still just a David Fincher fan in general. So in the end, this is another masterpiece from Fincher that is worth buying for your collection. You don't even need to read the book to enjoy this movie, because it's just a perfect, disturbing thriller. Anyways, that's it for my view of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. If you're wondering how I'm going to rate The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you love the novel, the Swedish versions, or just David Fincher in general and have not read the novel or watched the Swedish versions, and just want to see like an American adaptation of a foreign story done very right, then you should still watch and buy The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo for your David Fincher collection, no doubt. If you're wondering how I'm going to rate The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I'm going to give The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo a flat-out damn 10 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That pretty much wraps up my episode wraps up Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So, what's going to be the next one? Well, the next one is going to be for his third Brad Pitt collaboration. And I have this on the 4 Film Favorites DVD. Not you, I've already reviewed you. I'm talking about this. This is going to be a first time watch for me as well. It's one of his few that's not rated R and PG-13, much like The Social Network. So, this one is 165 minutes long, but we'll see how this one goes. This will be a first time watch for me, so maybe it might be a little hard getting into this one. But we'll see. We'll just see. Let's just see how it goes when I watch it. But, until then, guys, that'll be it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. If you like this one to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe to Don G. Corleone.